And of course, it will be recorded on LinkedIn as well. Welcome to all of you to our webinar today with perhaps the longest title we've ever written. High Impact Leadership, the number one fastest way to accelerate your organization's success, specifically as it relates to your leaders. I'm so glad to be with you wherever you're located, from Croatia to Canada to all over the United States, at least what I've seen so far. And so for those of you, we've got New York, the beautiful Hudson Valley, and I'm getting some feedback. I'm not sure why. I know why. I need to mute a couple of people, which I will do. If for some reason you're not muted, if you would, I'm going to mute everybody. And there we go. We got everybody muted. We're rocking and rolling. So because there's so many people here, what I'm going to ask you to do is to participate via the chat. And because we've got all these folks that are on LinkedIn, which those chat messages will show up to me magically by our team. Hello, Mr. Olivier. So we're here to talk about our organization's success. And I don't know who many of you are. I know who a few of you are. And so I don't necessarily know what your role is in your organization, but I am glad you're here. Whether you're here with me on Zoom or whether you're here with me on LinkedIn, I'm so glad that you're here. And I don't know if you're at the top of your organization, if you're a leader somewhere in the middle. I don't know if you're a consultant or a trainer, maybe external to organizations. I don't know those things, right? But and maybe you're an individual leader, you're not thinking about this organization, you're thinking about this for yourself. I will tell you that we're going to be focusing on this largely from the organizational perspective, but guess what? Everything we're going to talk about still applies to us individually. In fact, it's almost always best before we think about big to bring it down and then go back up. So it's exactly what we're going to do, regardless of your role, regardless of where you're located, regardless of where you're watching me from. I'm going to ask you, Richard, to go ahead and turn off your camera, if you would, please. And we got other people turning on your cameras. Please turn off your cameras for me, if you would. That would be awesome. Thank you. So I don't know where you're calling in from, but I know this. You're here because at some level, you care about the success and effectiveness of your organization. And you know that in order for our organizations to be successful, we have to have leaders who are successful. That's why you're here. That's certainly why I'm here to share this with you. So if you don't know me, just a couple of bits about me before we get started. I've written a bunch of books. I get the great honor to lead a team here at the Kevin Eikenberry Group, and I've been doing that for a very long time. More about that in just a second. I've been named to a bunch of lists as a thought leader. We've been helping leaders and organizations with personal and organizational and leadership development for over 30 years. We have clients from all over the world. The last time I counted, 53 countries we've worked with leaders from. I live in Indianapolis, and as I already hinted, I lead a team every day. So I come at this not as only as some sort of external thinker person, not only as an author or a speaker, but as someone who's living this every day, working to build an organization, working to develop leaders inside of our organization. And so hopefully I come at this from a very practical perspective and to share with you not only what we've learned, but what we've learned in working with organizations around the world. So there are some nice things that people have said about me over time, and you can see those things here. And so if you didn't know me before now, I hope that you stay around and you feel like, hey, he knows enough about this stuff to make this worth my time. I'm going to do everything I can to make it worth your time. Okay, so where are we headed? And if you signed up, at some level, wherever you signed up from, you have some clue about this, but we're going to talk about the biggest reasons why so much investment in leadership development is wasted. Yes, it's wasted. And given what I do for a living, that pains me to say, but we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about why coaching is so valuable and how you can share that message with others, which may very well be important here, because by the time we're done, you may say, I'm in, Kevin, I get this, but I got to communicate this to others in my organization. So I want you to be thinking about that. And we're going to give you some tools to do that. And so we're going to talk about creating a culture of coaching, identifies the ways to get coaching, to have coaching happen in your organizations, and figure out what the best ways for that are for you, and helping you build an action plan for your organization. That's where we're headed. So now I'm curious, and we'll do this both on the LinkedIn side. And as I said to all of you here on the Zoom side, there's about a 15-second lag on the LinkedIn side. So we'll hear from them a little later. But I'm curious for you to tell me, wherever you are, in the chat or in the comments, why you joined us. So now you know why you're here, or from my perspective. But I'd be curious, what led you to join us? I'll give you a second to do that. Give me a sense of that as we move into the rest of the session. So go ahead and share your reasons, please. As I scroll down, I see more people that I know, so I'm saying hello to you in mass, those of you that I know. That says we've just merged with another company. Our leaders need the best skills, 100%. Leadership skill we need help with. Someone says they love my books. They want to develop coaching skills. They think this is a game-changing idea. Peggy says nice things about me. Louise says nice things about me. I have had great results implementing concepts. I've learned more nice things about Kevin. But here we go. Continuous improvement of myself. And leadership is a skill that we have to continually refine. Marin says that's absolutely right. Joni says, as a manager of OD, I'm responsible for leadership development, always looking to anticipate and plan effectively, which is fantastic. Mike says, a manager looking to improve culture, to be more welcoming, problem solving, and team focused. So, and I can see that there are all sorts more below here that as you are all piling in. And we've got some executive coaches here, need for improvement. How do we invest? Develop more confidence in my coaching. So here's what I'm seeing. I was promoted in the company I work for, and I love learning and being the best version of myself. Get some insights. So here's the thing. As I said earlier, thank you, Marissa, for putting those in from LinkedIn. So here's what I'm going to say. We're going to talk for all of you that are here sort of for this personal side of this. Fantastic, because you're going to get some things there. But I will unabashedly and clearly say that ultimately my focus here is to talk about this organizationally. So I just want to be clear that if you're here for yourself, you're going to get great value. But before we're done, we're going to really be talking about this from that larger organization perspective as well. So here's the thing. People have been investing in leadership development in organizations for a long time, and investing more and more as time goes on, right? And in fact, the last research I read said $60 billion a year are invested in leadership development around the world. Well, that's exciting, except that most estimates say that it's only about 10% effective. So if I'm going to mute everybody again here. I think we've got everybody. I got some people that aren't muted, so I'm going to mute them now. If you see yourself as unmuted, please mute yourself. I'd appreciate that. I don't know why that's triggering off, but here we go. Going to make one more change, and then hopefully we won't have that problem again. So here we go. If you could invest $60 billion and only get $6 billion back, you'd probably stop. If you could invest $60 and only get that many back, and only get $1 back, $10 back, you probably wouldn't keep investing. Like, this just makes sense. Like, why would we do it? And yet we do, because we know that leadership development is important, right? So this is the dilemma. So I'm going to unpack why this happens, but to do it, I'm going to bring this back down to the individual basis. Here we go. How do any of us learn complex things? Here are the steps that we all go through if we want to learn something that's complex. We, first of all, decide we want to learn it. Then we go out and get some resources, some input. Maybe we take some training, we do something, and we take some time to learn it, not just to invest in the reading, listening, training, etc., but some time to let that sort of soak in, right? Then we have to try it. We have to take it from knowing to doing. We have to go from mindset and skill set, Yvette says, to habit set, 100%. And once we try it and practice it, we need to get some feedback, whether that's from ourselves, whether it's from others. We need to get feedback. And if we do all that, we improve. But if we really want to learn something complex that doesn't just happen once, we have to rinse and repeat. Some of you are old enough to remember that when you picked up shampoo, it said rinse and repeat. They were trying to sell more shampoo. But what you're trying to do is really learn or come closer to mastering a complex skill, right? Like what I just described is not new information to you. This is what we do. Here's the question though. Is leading others complex? I'm not even going to wait for your yeses because I know that you would agree with that. Right? Like leading others is complex. So let's look at those steps organizationally rather than for ourselves and say, if those are the steps, how are we doing on those in our organization? Right? And you can just think about that and say, which of these steps, like chances are, if you're here, that you're doing the second bullet. But the question that we see everywhere we go is all of the rest are question marks. Every one of the rest is a question mark, right? Like, are we providing training to people and they don't really have a clear reason why and they don't really want to learn it? If that's the case, we've already got a problem, right? Are we giving people time to really learn it beyond the sort of academic knowledge level? Are we encouraging them, expecting them, giving them time to practice? Are they getting feedback? And if they're not doing many or any of those things, then they're likely not going to be improving. And so then all that's happening is we rinse and repeat the training part. And we've already talked about the problem that we have globally with that. So like if like in our experience working with clients, we've seen every one of those question marks missing, sometimes many of them. And only you can decide in your organization which ones are missing. But thinking about that is very useful. So I could say to you, well, here we go. We have identified the problem. Michelle, if you can turn off your camera for me, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So here we go. Problems identified. Like if this is the stuff, if any of these are missing when we're developing our leaders, then we've figured out at least part of the problem. We're not done identifying problems, but there's part of it, right? So, because here's the thing, if we look at it this way, we're thinking that all we got to do is give people training. But some of you, and you can say yes, just for fun, if you've ever heard me say this, that developing leaders is a journey. It's not something that just happens. Those 7 steps that I just shared with you are steps in a journey. They're steps in a process. And I'll bet some of you have heard me say this too, right? We say this all the time. Training is an event, but learning is a process. And I actually love this image. I created it with ChatGPT with DALL-E, and I love it because, you know, there's nothing wrong with learning in a classroom. There's nothing wrong with training. It's just not the whole picture. And in fact, what I just showed you a second ago shows that very, very clearly, right? Training is an event, learning is a process. The process of learning and the process of leading. Okay. So now let's go back organizationally again and ask this question. Why are we developing our leaders? And I'd love for you to tell me in the chat. I'll just stop for a second and say, tell me in the chat or in the comments, like, why? Why is developing the leaders important in your organization? So even if you're here as thinking this individually, you have an answer to this for your organization. So take a second to do that. Sima, if you would turn off your camera, that'd be fantastic. So leaders empower others, building capacity in the team. So we're talking about contingency. We're talking about succession planning. We're talking about continuity. The number one people leave their position as they fire their boss. To help, Corey says, to be a stronger organization. So in other words, we want to overcome the whole, we want to overcome the turnover issue, right? Like we could go on and on. We assume that people who are taking leadership roles do not have the skills, which is probably, in this case, a pretty good assumption, I would say, as it turns out. We've got other stuff. There we go. Let's see here. I'm going to do something else real quick here. So better engagement of our people. That's coming in from LinkedIn. To fulfill the mission statement and grow those reporting to them. Adanya says, our leaders shape our morale on the teams, which affects productivity and retention. Listen, I'm about ready to put a list on this slide, and you guys have said every one of them in one way or another. Some of you said them directly. I'm just going to put them up here. We wanted the organization to grow and make more money, John says. That's part of why we're in business, right? So to grow the business, to grow the people, and eventually grow the business again. And so here's a list, right? Improve business results. You guys said that. Reach goals. We talked about that. Reduce turnover. We talked about that. Increase productivity. That was in the list. Develop our teams. That was in there. Build the culture. That's in there. Like, it's all there. You guys have said these things. Like, we can turn every one of these things into mission critical, organizational critical, turn all of them into dollars. Like, there are reasons why globally we keep investing in our leaders, even if we're not getting the returns that we want to get. Like, there are good reasons why we do it, but it makes total sense, right? But we've identified some problems with the process, that the way we think about doing this is more about an event rather than a process. We're not thinking about it as a journey. But there's another set of problems that whenever we are doing programmatically, even if it is more than just training, like even if we've got some sort of ongoing stuff that we're doing, which is fantastic, even if we're doing that, we might be seeing some of these problems in our organizations. I'm just going to put this slide up and look at this. Like, if people don't see the why, how likely is it they're going to engage? If there's no accountability after they are involved in some kinds of leadership development activities, how likely is it that they're going to apply it? If there's no clear expected outcomes, if people don't know what's expected of them then when they're done, how are they supposed to be different? How are they supposed to lead in a different way? If there's no connection between what they're, quote, learning and how it gets used in the real world, or even worse, if what's happening doesn't seem to match what happens in their real world, then that's not going to go very well. Or if all we're doing is check the box training, or if it's truly just all events. Like, if you got any of these problems, oh, Paula's comment from LinkedIn is great. We do this to show leaders we care about them and their growth. That's another reason. We want retention not only of our teams, but of those leaders, right? So again, I'm not going to ask you to comment in the chat or in the comments about your answer here, but rather I'm simply going to say, if you identify any of these, then more problems have been identified. And so, okay, so we're 18 minutes in to this, and you're saying, Kevin, I thought you were supposed to give us answers. All you're doing is giving us things to be concerned about. Now, obviously, in some of these slides, I've given you things to say, hey, if you're doing some of these things, great. If you're not, you're already identifying some action steps you might take. But fundamentally, for the first 18, 19 minutes of this, I've been identifying problems for you. And you're saying, Kevin, what about solutions? And I'm going to say to you that a part of, like, this is a complex problem of developing leaders and doing it organizationally. I'm not going to say that this is the only thing, but I'm saying it might be the most important thing that you could change to make a difference. That coaching can be the solution. Again, part of the solution. Okay. Coaching. Now, here's what I know, because I've talked to thousands of people about the idea of coaching over time, that we've all got our own thinking about what it is. We've all got our own positive and negative baggage attached to that word. And some of us have great experiences, some of us have less great experiences, some of us have no experiences. And so what I want to do is move into this slowly, because I recognize that we're not all in the same place, right? So here's that last list that I showed you. I will say that coaching can help with all of them. right? Like if we're just signing people up to take some sort of leadership development and they don't really understand the context and the why, if a coach can help people see that, a coach can help people find their own whys, which are more important than the organizational ones anyway, right? Coaches can help us find whys. Coaches can create the accountability. Someone is now going to meet with me and I better have made some progress because they're going to ask me about it. So coaches can provide accountability. Coaches can clarify expected outcomes. Like what's the changed behavioral state that we're after? Coaches can help us clarify that and can help us move toward it by having clear goals about what the coaching is to accomplish. And absolutely, coaching can help us connect learning to real work, not just esoterically, but if Roy is my coach and I'm having a hard time seeing how this thing I learned in class connects, Roy, as my coach, might very well be able to help me figure that out. Roy might be able to make that connection for me, which, by the way, could end up providing my why, which gives me a bit better reason to stay engaged and wanting to learn it, right? If there's coaching as a part of our leadership development, we are no longer simply checking boxes. And what we can then do is with coaching can turn events into a process. If you buy my idea that leadership development is a journey or a process, and that training is an event, but learning is a process. If both leadership development is a process and learning is a process, coaching can help create learning process. It's a powerful way that we can do that. Okay. So again, I mentioned a second ago that we all have in our head what coaching is. And I would say to you that there are different things that coaches can be, or different roles that coaches can play. And I don't mean life coach, fitness coach, leadership coach. I don't mean, although those are speaking coach. Like, I'm not talking about this from a content perspective. I'm saying that the coach as a role can be lots of different things. And if we look at this list, and I'll walk through them, but if we look at this list, we start to realize something important, that if we don't get a match between what we are expecting coaches to do and what we are expecting coachees to do, or if there's not a match between those two people, then there's going to be a problem. Like the single first thing I do if I'm coaching someone is say, let's get clear about what the roles are here. Number one, which gets at this, like, what can I do to serve you best? Now, the answer that the coachee has might not be the only or the complete answer, but it's the starting point, right? So one of the points here is that coaches need to be clear with the people they're coaching, but it's also true organizationally. Like organizationally, we may want coaches to look like more of one of these things than another, right? Maybe we want coaches to be advisors, which is different in some ways than being a mentor, right? Maybe we want them to be catalysts to help people change. Maybe we want them to be givers of feedback. Maybe we want them to be accountability partners. We may, or confidence builders. We may want them to be several of these things. But if we don't set that clarity for the coach and within the coaching relationship, we can't be successful. So before we could go on in this conversation, I needed to take a second to say this. So I'm just going to take a second and ask you again in the comments, in LinkedIn, in the chat, if you're in Zoom, like, which of these things, well, I'm going to put this up and say this, like, who needs these things? Like, we all need these things, right? So my question would be, which of these things do you most want or need from a coach? Like, if you had to pick one of these things, if you were to have a coach right now, which one of those might be most useful, most valuable, most desirable, most helpful to you? And here's what we're going to see is that pretty much all these are going to show up from different people. right? If you're looking at that, we got advisor, we got accountability partner, accountability and confidence. Mentor has shown up more than once. Advisor has shown up again. Feedback, mentor shows up again. See, all of Thomas says all of them at different times. And that's kind of the point. Here's the thing. Like, we've got to be clear about that for ourselves. Like, what are we looking for from a coach? Hello, Ben. And now some are coming in from LinkedIn. Advisor has come in. Advisor. And you can see that pretty much all these are showing up in one way or the other. And these aren't mutually exclusive, right? Like, if you're wanting someone to help build your confidence, they're probably encouraging you, as an example, right? So again, back to, we all have said, like, I'd like this, I'd like some of these things. Like, we'd all like, yeah, Tansi says it's hard to extract one, right? A wardrobe of different hats that we might need to wear. Thank you, Olivier. So here's the thing. We all would say we need these things, but now organizationally, what if the leaders in our organization had these things? The ones they want, or the ones they need. And I'll go back to what I said earlier, that sometimes people don't have a clear picture of what a coach could be, and how that would relate. Some people, all they see when they think of coaching is in the athletic arena. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they then have a hard time translating that to their role as a leader in an organization, or even to their role as an individual contributor in an organization, right? And Olivier says that coaches need coaches too, 100%. I could have put in like 5 slides here for you, and there are none of them, but I could have put in like 5 slides in here that talk about the fact that the best, the highest achievers, better way to say it, the highest achievers in any field have coaches. If you want to go back to athletics for a second, you say that all of the very best athletes in their particular sports all have coaches. And that oftentimes leaders, executives will say, well, I don't need a coach. I've already been there and done that. Right? John says if Tiger Woods needs another perspective, so do we. 100%. Right? And sometimes even multiple coaches. Back to this list. Maybe I need someone that doesn't advise me. They just listen to me. Maybe there's a different person that's my accountability partner. Maybe there's someone else that is helping me really make change, like whatever that might be. Right? So this leads to the question, like, one of the issues for an individual leader is they don't really know what coaching is, but I think there's a whole lot. I won't ask Tony Robbins to do the job of Jamie Oliver coaching 100%. Right? Like, you don't want me as your tennis coach or your pickleball coach. Right? I mean, I don't know why those two things randomly just popped into my head, but since you said that, Olivier, there you go. Right? So here's the thing. Now we've got to start to think about whether it's for us individually, which it probably isn't if you've chosen to be here, but if certainly organizationally, like if we start to see why coaching matters, and I've given you several things here to help you share that message in your organizations, then the question becomes, like, why is it that sometimes that leaders, people, are resistant to coaching? Because this is an important thing for us to think about. Like, where's the resistance coming from? And it's especially important for me to share this with all of you, because again, I'm likely preaching to the choir here. You're here because you at some point already buy into what I'm saying, but that's not how everybody sees it. So we have to be ready to understand why people might be hesitant, why they might be concerned, why they might be resistant. And I think there's a whole bunch of reasons. I want to go through all these. The first one is I should be able to figure it out myself. I have been there. I have trouble with this one sometimes for myself. Like, I should be smart enough to figure this out. We got a lot of folks that have been promoted 3 or 4 times, And you might remember the Peter principle, like we've been promoted to the level of our own incompetence, and yet we don't see it. So that individualistic ethic, that ethic is I ought to be able to figure it out, can get in the way. And that could be because there's ego attached to that, or there could be self-confidence attached to that, or there could be a blind spot attached to that. In other words, they feel like this is what it takes to be a great leader, and I'm there. And that might even be true, but the reality is there's always room to grow as a leader. And so maybe there's where the problem is, which means they have no perceived need. Like, I just don't think I need it. Not because I don't think some do, not that I don't agree with it. Right. Even that first bullet, it doesn't necessarily mean that people don't agree with the idea of coaching. It means that for themselves, at least, like, I don't need that right now, or I think I can figure that thing out myself. Here's another big one. Yvette says that's why self-awareness is critical, right? Right. If we want to be a more effective leader, we have to be more self-aware. And as human beings, here's what we know. We know that human beings are not nearly as self-aware as they think they are. As leaders, we have blind spots, and a coach can help us illuminate the blind spot. Turn our head and say, no, look over here, Kevin. Look over here for a little bit. There's something here you're not seeing, you're not noticing, or where you could grow and you're not realizing that you could grow. Here's another big resistor. Like, if I have a coach, am I going to have to be vulnerable? Am I going to have to share my mistakes? This is going to be hard, right? There has to be trust, absolutely. And I may not want to be vulnerable to someone if I don't trust them yet. That's very likely, as an example, right? We think coaching is great for others, but not necessarily for us. Here's the thing, like, if I have a coach and they're going to help me be more accountable, maybe I don't really want to be accountable. Maybe I don't really want to change anymore. Maybe I'm feeling like I've had enough change for a while. And the fear of change is a reason why people resist coaches. People resist coaches because they think there's a stigma. This is a really important one for this list for your organization, because we've worked in organizations and I've engaged in organizations where there is a stigma. Like, if you get a coach, it's a problem. You're obviously a problem if they're bringing you a coach, spaghetti-o. Like, that might be an issue. You want to think about that. You want to be aware of that, right? Personally, so it could be real, it could be imagined. I've also been in organizations where people are like, you got a coach? Awesome. We're only going to give coaches to the high achievers, to the people that are, about to go to charm school, to the people who are the chosen few. I mean, that's a potential problem as well, even though it's great that those people are getting coaching, right? The problem of calling a coach is calling it not asking someone, right? So they'll just stay in the mud, right? So maybe people have had a bad past experience, or they just don't have any good examples. They've not seen it work. All their examples are in athletics. All their examples are when they were in high school, and they don't really have, or their experiences were not good. So the word coach to them immediately, even these other bullets notwithstanding, are a problem. Or listen, I'd love to have a coach. That'd be great, but I just don't have time. Don't have time. And I don't know very many leaders. Let me just do it this way. Yes or no in the chat as I continue here. But yes or no in the chat. Yes, I have plenty of time to work. I have plenty of time to get all my work done. I've got plenty of time to have a coach, versus no, which is like, my plate is full. Thank you very much. I pretty much knew what the answers were going to be, but it had been a while since you were typing, so I thought it seemed like a good idea. And here's the last one, and we're going to get to this one before we're done. If people might say, like, I'm all in, like, I see a need, I think coaching is valuable, I don't fear change, if I can find a coach that I trust, I'm all in, right? but I don't know how to get one. I don't know where to find one. I don't think the organization would provide me one. I wouldn't know where to look. I wouldn't know who to ask. I got no access. If I don't think I have access, even if I want it, it's not going to happen. And I can tell you at the highest levels, this one's a bigger deal than some realize. Because like, of course, if you want to coaching, we'll get you coaching. But like, if no one knows the approach, or if the internal coaches, more on that in a minute, that exist aren't, they're overbooked. Like they don't have any time. Then even if I know who to call, I can't get anybody. Like I had to call into a state that I will not name yesterday to solve a problem. And I call them and it says, it's going to be well for you before you can get through, go on hold. That's fine. And then it says, well, we're so busy today, you might as well call back another time. Like it doesn't matter if I have the phone number. If they're not going to get, I still don't have access. Right. I still don't have access. Yeah. And John says people associate coaching with being told what to do, not being guided where they want to go, or getting help in going where they want to go, or helping figure out the best place to go, all of those things. So there's that. And even though many of you, when I asked you what you need as a coach said advisor, even then we're not just looking for someone to tell us, we're looking for someone to help us discover, right? To John's point, right? As Olivier said, leveraging and not just directing. So here's the thing. If this is the resistance, like just give me yes in the chat if there was a light bulb that went off for you, either for yourself or for your organization as you looked at this list. Just give me a yes. I'm just curious if this worked, if this was helpful to anybody. Just give me a yes. I'm getting yeses in all caps. I guess that's a good thing. Okay. All right. So how do we overcome the resistance? Like the resistance individually, there's not a single thing we can do that will overcome all of these for everyone, but there are certainly things we can do. Hello, Marvin. There are certainly things we can do organizationally that can help us to overcome a lot of this resistance. And here it is. The first thing is that we can provide role models. Role models of people being coached. The higher level, the role models, the more powerful, right? Like if I know, like if I'm in an organization of several thousand people and the CEO is like 5 levels above me, and I know the CEO has a coach, that sends a message, doesn't it? Right? If I know that my boss, my leader has a coach or can have access to a coach, like if the buzz in the organization is that coaching is a good thing and that it's helpful and working, the better. And if there's widespread use, we avoid the stigma. We remove the stigma. If there's widespread use, we're not just picking the chosen few. So there's two sides of that. Like the mistake is only the very best get coaches versus only the people that are on their way out. You know, we got to solve this problem, right? The high potentials and the problems, if they're the only people that get the coaching, that's the problem. So if there's widespread use, if people see that they have access, we'll say more about that at the end, make it easy to find, get a coach. But here's the other thing. If there are clear expectations of what coaching is for, taking us back to what do you need a coach to help you with, right? That coaching is about us improving. Coaching is about us getting better. Coaching is about us moving toward the organizational goals, right? And if there's clear expectations that if you're using a coach, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. In other words, if you are accessing coaching and that's seen as a positive by the organization. So clear expectations, not only of what we're looking for from a coach, but why we're using coaches and putting all of that together. And if we're sharing success stories across the organization. And oh, by the way, for some of you, again, I said earlier that in some ways, I know that I am preaching to the choir. Some of you are the role models. Some of you have success stories. Some of you already have a coach personally. And so you're wanting to spread that across the organization. There are things that you can do as an individual leader to help create this culture with others. This isn't something that culture doesn't happen only from the top. Culture happens from both directions. Culture is simply the way we do things around here. creating a way we do things around here about coaching. That's what we're talking about here, right? And hopefully that makes some sense. The other thing that we can do is if we decide that coaching is something that we want to plug in to other programming, like let's just say, for example, so I'll say more, I'm going to say more about this later, but let's just say that after some sort of training course, everyone gets some coaching, whatever that looks like. Like now, coaching is part of something else. It's part of the program. It's built into, we're creating process, right? Or after training, we advise lots of clients on this. After training, the expectation is that the person that attended is going to have a conversation with their boss, their coach, about what they learned, what their action plan is, what their next steps are, creating accountability and clearer expectations. Like, so we can build coaching in lots of different ways into what we're already doing. So you may have some things to say like, we don't want to start from scratch. We got some good stuff, but we need to plug some more into it, turn it from event to process. Coaching might be the thing we want to do that. And then the last thing is we got to make it easy for people to find a coach, get a coach. They need to know where they can find them. They need to know how to get on the list, whatever that is in your organization. The more of these things we do, the better chance we have of getting coaching to happen for the purpose of reaching our business goals. Remember, we're not doing coaching as a thing. We're doing coaching to help us develop leaders. And because we've already determined that when we develop leaders, we get great things happen in our organization, right? This isn't about, and so this is a really important point. If you're trying to influence your organization around the importance of coaching, you really got to quit talking about coaching. Notice how much time we spent before I ever got to the word coaching. The first 20 minutes of this presentation were all about the underpinnings, the pain, the reasons why, before we got moving forward from there. That's really important for you to remember because, again, I'm going on the assumption that you're probably already in. And you being overly excited about this by itself is not going to help you get to solution. Okay. In our experience, one of the biggest challenges shows up based on that last bullet. Like we've seen all of these be a problem. And all of these are opportunities for us. But it's that last bullet that's often hard because we're like, well, how do we do this? And what does it look like? And again, some of you are still holding in your head, what is Kevin meaning by coach? So the question is, who should be the coach? And I would say there's lots of choices about who could be the coach, right? So there are lots of choices. The first one on the list ought to be the leader's leader, right? As a leader, as a supervisor, as a manager, we have a responsibility to coach our folks. And if we're a leader of leaders, then we certainly should be doing at least some of this coaching with our leaders because that's part of our job. And so you might say, well, that is the big area that we could be working on. And you may say, that's really where we ought to be heading, but we're not sure there's an expectation for them, or we're not sure there's a skill set for them. More on that before we're done. Another thing that's often forgotten is oftentimes peers can be tremendous coaches. Right? Again, look at all of the reasons we want coaches. If I know I'm meeting with Spencer, who is my peer, and we're talking about what we're both trying to work on, I'm not going to show up 5 meetings in a row with Spencer and not have made any progress. Like having a peer as an accountability partner or an accountability coach, incredibly valuable. And in fact, and this is no disrespect to Spencer, Spencer doesn't even have to have a tremendous amount of coaching skills if the goal of this is around accountability. Like we're getting together, like you're making progress, not making progress, what's in the way, what do you need to do? Like we can get that can happen. And well, some of it happen naturally because we all know about peer pressure, right? So if I got a peer coach that I'm accountable to for making progress, that can be incredibly powerful. So those first two means that you don't necessarily have to do You don't necessarily have to find other resources. You just have to reset some expectations of everyone else that sits in the organization. Right? The next one is other leaders or volunteers. I think about this one most often in relationship to mentoring. Oftentimes we've helped organizations set this up occasionally, mentoring partnerships, mentoring arrangements where sometimes leaders are asked if they would volunteer to be a mentor. And then those people are now in the pool, or those people get paired up with someone, that kind of thing. So that could be a source depending on what kind of coaching you're looking for, right? You could have internal coaches. You could have maybe if the coaching is tied to some training, perhaps the trainer is also doing some coaching with people. You could have internal coaches inside of your HR organization, or inside of process improvement, or inside of OD, or inside of any number of places that might have skills and bandwidth is made available for them to do coaching, right? And then, of course, we can use external coaches. But notice where I put that. I was at the bottom of the list, and you might have thought, well, Kevin probably thinks we ought to put that at the top of the list. It's certainly an important one. There's value in having external coaches in some situations, right? But it's certainly not the only thing on this list by any stretch of the imagination. So again, in the chat or in the comments, which of these or any of these are your organization using to provide coaching to other leaders? I'm just curious. Which of these things are you doing? We'll go ahead and give you a second to do that. Marin says all of them. Managers and peers. Stacy says none of them. Tom says none of them. Cheryl says all. Informal only. And by the way, that's an interesting point because I didn't say this formally or informally, right? Mark says the first two. So this is a really important point as well. Managers, peers, internal coaches. Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. So here's the thing. This can be formal arrangements. This can be more informal. The example that I gave with Spencer as my peer is that seemed a little more formal, but it certainly wouldn't have to be by any stretch, right? So that leads us to the next point, which is like, okay, when should coaching happen? And you might say, okay, Kevin, well, we ought to all be getting coaching, right? But we all have work to do too, and so we got to figure that out. Laura says all of them depending on what works best for the person being coached. I love that. Luann says providing coaching. So, so I lost that. I'm going to go back up to that. Luann said, but we provide coaching to both our internal coaches and our mentors. Right. So, Luann, I think that's a great point. Like, we want to make sure that if we're asking people to do something, that they're going to be equipped to do it well. 100%. Agree with that 100%. So we've got everything from none to all to some portion of them. Okay. All right. So when should coaching happen? Well, there should probably be some kinds of ongoing coaching relationship that's scheduled. So if with my boss, if Shelby is my boss, and hopefully Shelby and I have regular one-on-ones, and hopefully coaching is part of that one-on-one rhythm. And so we could have ongoing coaching with any of those other, if any of those, you could have an ongoing scheduled relationship with a peer. You could have a scheduled, we could go right down that list, right? Okay. So when should coaching happen? It should happen when it's triggered by an event, like someone goes to a workshop. And so maybe there's coaching that follows that. Again, with any of those on that earlier list, it could also be triggered by an assessment. You've probably had this. You take a 360 assessment, leadership assessment, then perhaps there's coaching. In fact, I would hope that there would be coaching that would follow that. You do some sort of communication style, any kind of style assessment might be followed with coaching to understand it, to do some advising, to do some facilitating, whatever that would look like around that. That's certainly a time. So events can trigger it. We can also, which I don't think we think about nearly often enough, is for people to have single event coaching as needed. I'm guessing that many of you were thinking largely about the first bullet as we've been going all along through here, but it's a really important point to have available the chance for people to get coaching as needed. And then, of course, it could be scripted programmatically based on some bigger organizational process, which could be related to being triggered, but it could be something else, right? So like all of these are ways, times when coaching could happen. And again, to the point made earlier, formal or more informal. And so I guess I'm talking kind of here formal with a small case F, not like formal like thou shalt, but there's processes and expectations and ways to make it happen, right? Okay. So what's next? So I said that you'd leave with some way to assess how this fits for you and your organization. So the first thing is like, where are your gaps? Is your gap in access? Then you've got to think about like, how do we make more people, or how do we set an expectation of people, or maybe there's access, but those coaches aren't getting used. So like, how are we, maybe that's your issue. Maybe your issue is around process. Maybe your issue is around culture, that people don't have a sense that coaching is valuable, that coaching is useful. There's a cultural issue here. Maybe your gap is around expectations, right? The expectation that coaching is necessary, and so therefore valued, and so therefore expected. And then maybe you just don't have the resources, whether that's training our internal coaches, whatever that might be. So I've given you a lot in the last 50 minutes to think about, where are your gaps in process, in access, in culture, etc. And then once you have those gaps figured out, then you can start to think about a plan to overcome them. Okay. So before we move into the last part of our program today, is there anything that's come up that you have a question for me on? There's been a lot of stuff being said in the chat. I've been trying to comment on it as we go. But is there anything specifically before we round third and head toward home, metaphorically, that you want to ask me about? I'm going to move on, but if those questions show up, because I know that we've got a time lag, and as well as the lag of you thinking and deciding to type. So I'm going to move on, but if I see them, I will answer those questions before we finish, okay? So if this is what we need to do, and you say, well, okay, Kevin, we got to build this plan, but I'm not sure how to do that. So the question might be, so how could Kevin and the Kevin Eikenberry group help you? Well, there are some ways we could help potentially. And the first way that we could help is that we can provide coaches directly. Right? That if you want to go to that last bullet, external coaches, we can be a resource to you around external coaches, both for what we call coaching bundles, which is the single event thing. Here's the idea here. The idea here is that you purchase a bunch of 30-minute coaching slots from us that can be used as needed by whomever you make them available to. Right? So it could be that traditional coaching relationship thing, 3-month-long coaching situation. We can do that, help lots of people with that. We've got a cadre of coaches we can bring in to help with that. So it doesn't have to be the traditional thing. It could be like, we need an external perspective. We're using internal coaches, but occasionally we need someone to get an external perspective. And we want to get some of that sort of single-use coaching availability. We can work with you after assessments. We have assessments that we deliver on, 360 assessment being an example. So that's certainly one things, or after workshops that we deliver, or to help you with coaching after the workshops that you deliver internally. So lots of ways that we could help in that regard. And as I think it was Lou Ann that said on LinkedIn, we can also provide training for your internal coaches. Like you say, hey, we've got an internal group of people, or we've got some high potential folks that we'd like to help. We can't promote them right now, but we'd really like them to build this skill, and they could be an internal coach for us. It's a great way to go, but we need to give them some skills. We can help provide that training for them. And we can also, if you're saying, hey, we need to get all of our leaders doing this, right? We need our leaders to be coaches. And so we can obviously help build coaching skills for your leaders, right? Through workshops, through other sorts of ways, we can help support your leaders being better at the coaching part of their job, right? Seeing that coaching is a part of their job and helping them move past and into that, right? some really good stuff that Dave has put in the chat. If you're on the Zoom side, you can see what he shared there. The interpersonal dynamics course or that book is excellent, a great place to go. And we can also help you think about how, hey, Kevin, we've already got stuff. We've already got programs. We've already got leadership development stuff that we've built or that we're using, and we're pleased with it. But how do we bolt the coaching onto it? Whoever's delivering it, one of the ways we can help is help you as a sounding board and a consultant to help you figure out how you're going to add that piece on. We may not have a role other than a consulting role. That's another way that we can help. So there's a variety of ways that we might be able to assist you. Okay. And so, but you got to get started. Like, it's one thing to be at the starting line, but that's going to get really uncomfortable if she doesn't get up and start running, right? And here's what I know. Some of you came here wanting some stuff for yourself, and you got plenty here to help you think about your own coaching process. But if you're now thinking about this, even if you came for yourself, you're now thinking organizationally, you can say, well, what could we do organizationally to make a change here? Well, we want to help you a little more. And we want, the first thing is that you can reach out to your contact on our team. And if you're here on LinkedIn and you know who on our team that invited you, you could reach out to them. If you're watching on LinkedIn and you don't know who you would want to contact on our organization, I'll tell you how to get to a person in a second, right? But if you know on our team who your person is, reach out to them and schedule a consult. If not, I'll tell you how to do it in a second. But this consult is what we'll call no risk. This is it says pre-consult, just a consult. Kevin left this off. Changing that on that slide is all it is. So this is a no risk thing, because once you reach out and schedule this to think about this organizationally, after you have that meeting with us, we're going to send you a copy of my book, Remarkable Leadership. And some of you are going to say, but Kevin, I already have a copy of that book. Guess what? There are others in your organization that could use it, right? And in fact, I'm going to encourage you, unless you're like the head of OD or the head of HR in your organization, don't come to this meeting by yourself, because we're having a conversation about your organization. So bring others with you. But once this meeting takes place, we're going to send you a copy of Remarkable Leadership. I'm going to sign it to whoever you tell me to sign it to, and we're going to be happy to send it to you. Like, this isn't going to cost you anything. And in fact, we're going to give you stuff, right? And here's what that process is going to look like. No surprises. We're just going to spend some time with you to understand your situation, answer your questions, see if we can help. Maybe not. Perfectly fine. If we can't help, we're going to be the first to tell you. We're going to say, man, or maybe what you're going to hear from us is we're going to listen and say, man, you've got this going, you're doing great. And maybe that's what you need to hear. And you're going to invest 30 minutes with us and get a book. Like, that's not bad, right? But if we think we can help, then we can start to talk in a more specific way about how we might be able to support you and what your next steps might be, whether that's with us or without us, right? This is a no risk consult. And so here again is how you do that. You reach out to the person on our team that you know, and you reach out to them. But again, if you're on LinkedIn, reach out to the person that invited you if you remember. If you don't, or if you don't know that person, you can either put your email in the chat right now, or preferably you could just send an email to Jill@KevinEikenberry.com. That should say, we're going to get that in the chat in both places, Jill@KevinEikenberry.com. And then Jill will work to get you set up. You get an email from us to get this started. So let's go back to where we started, that leadership development's an important thing. It's a complex thing, and that maybe in our organization, we're not doing it as well as we'd like to or as we could. And so when would be a better time than right now? I can't think of a better time than right now to work on it, right? Like we've already said that these are good, valid business reasons why we need to be developing our leaders. And we've talked today that coaching might be a big missing key to how we can make those investments we're already making work better. So why not? And again, here are the steps. The steps are just reach out to the person on our team that you know to schedule your no risk consult. If you don't know who that is, or you don't know who to reach out to on LinkedIn, just reach out to Jill@KevinEikenberry.com and say, I was on the webinar and we'd like to talk to someone on the team. And we will do that. And then after you have that meeting, we're going to send you a book, right? You'll get an email from us. If obviously you'll get an email from us right away if you reach out to your contact, but otherwise after Jill gets them and we sort them all through, we'll make sure you get an email from us as to who will be your contact and work from there. So here's what I know. You came here because you care about your organization. You care about your own development as a leader, and you care about the development of the leaders in your organization back to reason number one, because you want the organization to succeed. And so now you have some new thought about how coaching can help you do that. And now you have some ways to perhaps communicate that with others in your organization, even if you came as already on board with that idea. Now, hopefully you've got some process, you've got some language, you've got some ideas about how you can influence others, and you even have a step that you can lean into us and let us help you move that ball forward. And I can't think of a better time to do that than now. And I know this for a fact, that success always favors action, that movement creates momentum. And if you're wanting to improve the leaders in your organization, this is what you ought to do. You're not going to get a better deal from us than a no-risk consult where we're going to sit down with you and help you think some of this through for your organization, and then we're going to send you a free gift. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. I hope you'll take us up on it. And and you will be hearing from us beyond this. And if there's other ways that you think, hey, Kevin, this was really interesting, but we really want to talk to you about something else, just schedule that consult and we can talk about whatever you want us to talk about. Maybe you say, hey, we've got a very specific issue. Happy to do that as well. So I want to thank you all so very much. And I wish you the very best. And again, I will leave you with this thought that success favors action. I wish you great success. Hope that we're in chatting with you soon to help you be more effective and the leaders in your organization be more effective. Thanks, everybody.